Reverse Engineering Wattpad. I'm Claire and that's Will. And today we are reading chapters 4 to 7.
That's right. So chapter 4 is titled A Warning. 5 is The New Friend. 6 is Cucumbers, Mayonnaise, and Carrots. And 7 is The Moment Out of Time.
And we actually had a comment. Someone was very interested in cucumbers, carrots, and mayonnaise, so we get it now.
We'll see if it lives up to the hype.
I mean, hopefully. Yeah. Okay. Let's begin. Chapter 4, A Warning. Russell, Jasmine Sapphire's point of view. My alarm went off at 7 a.m. in the morning, waking me so I could get ready for my first class. I turned the alarm off and stretched the sleep out of my body. Raven groaned from her bed and buried her head deeper into her pillows. Raven, I said in a sing-song voice, time to get up. I didn't want her to miss her first class.
Raven groaned. She lifted her head, her black, purple, and red hair a wild mane surrounding her head. She squinted her eyes at the clock on her bedside table and glared at me. It's 7.
I know. You can never be too early. I got out of bed and headed over to my closet. I looked through my shirts to try and find my favorite green giraffe shirt. After going through all of the greens, I found it in the very back. I held up the shirt and admired the giraffe on the front. It had a monkey hanging off its neck. I grabbed my plain black skinny jeans and my red Vans and put them on too. Raven's phone dinged with a new message. Sleepily, she reached for it and read the message.
Are you up for another party this Friday? She asked, a wicked smile creeping its way onto her face.
Nope. No, thank you. I'm never doing that again. That was a mistake.
Author's note. Lol, sure, Rosalind Jasmine Sapphire. Want to make a bet on that? Smiley face.
That's a wink.
Oh yeah, that is a wink.
I thought about how loud the party had been. People had been crowded into that house like sardines. It wasn't my idea of fun. I preferred spending my Fridays in bed reading or making a pipe cleaner animal. I didn't expect Raven to understand. I didn't care if it made the whole school think I was boring. Maybe they were the boring ones. Suddenly, I thought about how Grandma Rose would feel if she knew I drank a beer. I felt guilty. Should I tell her? Grandma Rose and I were as close as a girl and her grandma could be. Would my mom be disappointed in me? I felt the unavoidable void in my chest as I thought about my mom and all she was missing in my life. She should have been here to see me off on my first day of college. I felt tears prickling my eyes as I thought them back. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to cry. I snapped back into reality and noticed Raven was now dressed in a black shirt that showed off her breasts a little too much and a black skirt that wasn't below her knee and 3-inch black heels. What are you wearing? I asked.
She looked down at her outfit. Do you like it? She asked.
I tried to smile. Yeah, I said, pretending to like it. It's very nice.
Raven clapped her hands. I'm glad you like it. I wasn't sure if the skirt matched the shoes. She did a little pose and grabbed her phone as it beeped again. I watched her frown.
What is it? I asked, wanting to know what was making her upset.
It's Ace, she said. He sent me this. She handed me her phone and played a video. It was of me attempting to chug the beer and failing.
Oh no, I said. He filmed it? I noticed the text he'd sent along with the video. Watching this so many times. LOL. I hate him, I said.
You should try and stay away from people like Ace, Raven said. Boys like him don't mix well with girls like you.
What do you mean? I asked.
Well, you're a good person. You aren't a partier. Ace isn't like that. He gets into fights and parties all the time. She sent him a quick text, probably a lol's back, and tossed her phone on her bed. I'm going to meet up with Spike at the coffee shop. Do you want to come? She asked.
No, thank you. I have to finish getting ready. When Raven left, I took out a secret pack of pipe cleaners I hid in my closet and started working on a new animal. Maybe I would make a turtle and mail it to Grandma Rose as a surprise. I thought she would really like that. Plus, Turtles were easy to make. I worked on the turtle until it was time to go to class.
Author's note. Hey everyone, I'm sorry this chapter was so short, but don't worry, I will get the next one up soon. Seems to be like a common author's note I've noticed, is apologizing for a chapter being short.
Yeah, or just promising the next one soon. Usually that's when they, as in me, stop writing the book completely. Sorry, it's been 5 months. Oh, I promise I'll update again. Never does. Okay. Chapter 5, The New Friend. Rosalind Jasmine Sapphire's point of view. I walked into the building where my first class, English literature, was. It was in room 213. I looked around for a long time, going up and down the hallways, but I couldn't find it. Finally, I asked the teacher who I passed where it was. She gave me a strange look. It's upstairs, on the second floor, she said. I could have smacked myself in the head. Duh! Of course room 213 would be on the second floor.
Author's note. This actually happened to me once. SMH LMAO.
I hope you're smarter than that in actual class, Rosalind Jasmine Sapphire, I thought to myself as I ran upstairs and found the classroom. I went inside. It was a pretty big class, and there were a lot of students. I stood in the doorway, trying to decide where to sit. I could sit at the front of the class, but then people might think that I'm a nerd, or even worse, a geek. I could sit in the back of the class, but people might think I'm a slacker who doesn't care about learning. I could sit in the middle, but that was the most crowded area. It really was a dilemma. This is silly, I thought. Just pick a seat already. People are staring at you. I started walking to the back, but stopped, then headed to the front, but stopped again. I really couldn't decide. Earth to Rosalind Jasmine Sapphire, this is not a matter of life and death. Just find an empty chair and sit in it. But what if I picked the wrong chair? How could there be a wrong chair? They're all the same. But people usually stick to the same chair that they pick on the first day for the rest of the semester. Great, so you'll become best friends with your chair. Now all you have to do is pick one.
Ahem, miss, said a voice from the side of the room. I looked over. It was the teacher, an old man in a tweed jacket with white hair. Please have a seat so we can begin. A few people in the class laughed. Red-faced, I went to the front of the room where there were a lot of open seats. I sat down in one next to a red-haired boy. He looked really surprised when I sat next to him.
Hi, I'm Rosalind Jasmine Sapphire, I introduced myself.
Hi, he said shyly. I'm Arnie.
I stuck my hand out. Pleased to meet you, Arnie, I said.
He took my hand and shook it, smiling a little. People don't usually sit with me, he said.
That's high school talking, Arnie, I said. We can make all sorts of new starts for ourselves here.
He thought about that for a minute. Yeah, I guess we can, he finally said, sounding hopeful. I smiled at him. The teacher went to the front of the room. Hello, class, he said in a dry voice. I am Professor Doggett. I'll be your English literature teacher. This semester we're going to look at many classic works, and the first one will be Pride and Prejudice. Does anyone know who wrote that book?
My hand shot up. Of course I knew the name of the author of my absolute favorite book.
Yes, said the teacher, calling on me.
Jane Austen, I said excitedly.
Yes, that's correct. Very good, he said in the same dry voice. He turned around and started writing on the whiteboard. Wow, you're pretty smart, Arnie whispered to me.
I've only read it about 1 million times, I whispered back, smiling. Professor Doggett was writing out the names of all the books we would be reading that semester. I had already read most of them because I liked reading. As he was talking as he wrote, going on in one of the most boring voices ever. This guy could seriously make me lose interest in books, I thought to myself.
At the end of every month, you will turn in an essay on one of the books we read. These essays will make up 20% of your final grade.
Okay, I can handle that, I thought.
Class participation will make up 5% of your grade.
Well, thank goodness it's not higher than that. I can be pretty quiet sometimes.
And of course, your final exam will make up the remaining 75% of your grade.
Maybe college isn't so different from high school after all, I thought. Professor Doggett droned on for the rest of the class. I seriously almost fell asleep about 3 times, but then it finally ended. Everyone packed up their bags and started leaving. I'm kind of hungry, I said to Arnie. I think I'm going to go to the cafeteria to get lunch. Do you want to come? Arnie looked really surprised.
You want me to come with you? He asked, blushing a bit.
Yeah, why not? Gotta eat sometime, right? I pointed out.
Well, yeah, I'll definitely come with you, he said with a really big smile.
We walked out of the class together. I had made a new friend.
Yeah. You gotta love those final exams that can completely ruin the entire year for you if you don't pass.
Yeah. Well, that's what they were in high school. Here before, it was like 50% of your grade. If you had a bad day,
always something completely ridiculous.
Yeah, they changed it a few years ago because they thought it wasn't fair because colleges weren't looking at that grade. Anyways, here it is. Chapter 6, cucumber, mayonnaise, and carrots. I said it wrong earlier. Wow. Anyways, Rosalind Jasmine Sapphire's point of view. Arnie and I stood in the lunch line, which snakes around the cafeteria like a giant snake. Arnie held on to his lunch money like it was his lifeline. I had a credit card, so I don't have to worry about running out of money.
Author's note. I wish.
The line was long, and I was really hungry. Fortunately, I always kept an emergency bag of plain potato chips in my backpack. So I took it out and started to snack on them while we waited.
So what do you think about Professor Doggett? Arnie asked, playing with the money in his hands. He looked at me and then looked at the ground, a blush making its way onto his face.
He was a little boring, I said. I hoped Arnie would agree. I didn't know what I would do if he didn't. What if he didn't want to be my friend because he thought Professor Doggett was the most amazing teacher ever? My forehead broke out into a sweat, but before Arnie could reply, I heard a voice behind me.
Who was a little boring? Ace asked, coming up to us in line. My heart was racing. He hadn't been there a second ago.
Our English professor. Not that it's any of your business, I said, even though Ace didn't need to know what we were talking about.
Isn't that in their job description? He asked, snatching the bag of chips out of my hand.
Hey, those are mine, I said, trying to take them back. Ace held them out of my reach.
What's this? Only plain potato chips? Ace asked with a smirk.
What's wrong with that? I asked. I like them plain. I looked off to the plain chips. For a plain girl, I murmured. Ace frowned, but didn't say anything. Anyways, what do you mean, isn't that part of their job description? I asked.
To be boring. Hey, Rosie, I think you'd make a pretty good English teacher. Don't you agree, dweeb? Ace asked Arnie, laughing at the way my face heated up.
My name isn't Rosie! It's Rosalind Jasmine Sapphire! I said as calmly as possible. Maybe he couldn't hear at the loud party?
Whatever you say, Rosie. He winked at me. The nerve of him. Her name is Rosalind Jasmine Sapphire, Arnie said quietly.
I smiled at him, which made Ace frown. What was his problem? I put my hands on my hips and stuck my tongue out at him.
I didn't think a party animal like you would find such a dweeb friend. I'm not a dweeb, Arnie exclaimed.
Party animal, I added, feeling my face heating up once again. Ace smirked at me, ignoring Arnie.
Really? What about the beer you oh so gracefully chugged? He crossed his arms, laughing to himself. Huh. Rosalind Jasmine Sapphire, you drink? Arnie asked in shock.
No, I don't!
Ace shook his head and took his phone out. That's not true, Rosie, he said in a mocking tone.
I knew he had the video of me failing to chug a beer on his phone. I tried to grab it from him, hoping to delete the video, but Ace held his phone over his head and I couldn't reach. The nerve of this guy! I reached higher, standing on the very tops of my toes to try and grab the phone from him, when I tripped and my body crashed into his. I grabbed the first thing I could get my hands on to steady myself. Ace. Specifically, his bicep. Electricity shot through me from when I felt how firm they were. Ace held my arms and stood me upright.
Whoa there, he said. Steady, Rosie.
It's Rose and Jasmine Sapphire, I mumbled, completely embarrassed by my fall. I let go of him and blushed as I brushed some hair out of my face.
Don't go falling for me that fast. I'm not that magical.
I rolled my eyes. Of course he was still using this as an opportunity to be full of himself. I was about to tell him off when a poor lunch lady bumped into Ace by accident. Like a hawk stalking its prey, his head snapped towards her.
Oh, sorry, dear, she said. My bad.
Before I knew what was happening, Ace was on top of her, his fist connecting with the poor woman's frail body. The crowd quickly gathered around them, chanting, "Fight, fight, fight, fight. Ace!" I shouted, "Ace, stop!" I tried to push my way through the ever-growing crowd to get to him. I couldn't let him hurt her. As I pushed and shoved with all my might and finally made my way to the center, I grabbed Ace's arm to try and pull him off the lunch lady. "Stop," I said. "It was an accident." Ace stopped and looked at me. He looked like he didn't recognize me for a few seconds before blinking his way back into recognition.
Rosie, he looked around.
It's Rose and Jasmine Sapphire, actually.
Ace smirked and shrugged. Sure it is. Some students were helping the lunch lady to her feet. I got a few good hits and he didn't stand a chance, she was saying. I was glad she was okay. Ace looked down at his hand. His knuckles were bruised. I better go ice this, he said. See you around, Rosie.
I didn't get a chance to correct him before he was walking away. Maybe the adrenaline was confusing him. He had to know my name by now.
Did you see that? Arnie asked when I made my way back to him in line.
Ace is a mean guy, I said.
That poor lunch lady, Arnie looked sad. I hope she's okay.
She got a few good punches in, I quoted.
So, you and Ace, Arnie twisted his fingers around each other. Is he your...
friend? No, I could never be friends with someone like him. Arnie's eyes lit up and he looked at me with the biggest smile I had ever seen.
Well, that's good because he's crazy. He's always getting into some kind of horseplay. Plus, I heard he's a real troublemaker and you aren't like that.
I was happy to know Arnie was somebody like me. It would be nice to have a friend who wouldn't mind staying in to read or study instead of partying every weekend. Maybe we could even form a study group with other people like us. We could make posters for it and put them around the school, and the group might grow so big that all the parties would seem really small by comparison. That would really show people like Ace. We got our lunch and found a table. The excitement from the fight had died down and people had gone back to their regular conversations. Arnie was counting his change, and I was just about to bite into my cucumber and mayonnaise sandwich with a side of carrots when Raven came over to the table with Spike.
I heard Ace was talking to you. What was that all about? She asked.
He just wanted to mock me for what happened the other night, I said, trying not to mention that I had had a beer. I didn't want Arnie to think differently about me.
About the beer? Raven asked.
I looked up at Arnie, hoping he hadn't heard. Thankfully, he was distracted by Spike, who was swiping up Arnie's coins for him. That's nice of him, I thought. Yeah, about that. I looked down, ashamed.
I'll talk to him, but please remember what I told you. Stay away from him if you can. He's bad news. Raven took a carrot from my tray and grabbed Spike by the arm. She waved at me as they left.
Chapter 7. A Moment Out of Time. Rosalind Jasmine Sapphire's point of view. I was in the car with Arnie, Raven, and Spike. Spike was driving us all down to a party being thrown by the community service fraternity on the other side of campus.
Author's note. Lol, told you so. Smiley face, not winky face.
Good. I hadn't really had the best time at the last party I went to, but Arnie invited me and I wanted to be there for my new friend. Since Raven had brought me to the last one, I thought it was only fair to invite her to this one, and she then had to invite Spike. Arnie had a sort of hurt look on his face when he found out that Raven and Spike were going to come with us. But when I asked him what was wrong, he said it was nothing.
I never thought I'd say it, but I'm actually looking forward to this, Spike said from the driver's seat. The community service fraternity is the biggest group of losers in school. They probably throw the lamest parties, too. They aren't losers, Arnie said from the back seat. They're all really nice people. I've known the president since we met at second grade math camp. They're a bunch of wusses, and I can't wait to make fun of all of them, Spike replied uncaringly. Settle down, boys, Raven said from the front passenger's seat. I'm just having a bit of fun, Spike said. He looked at me in the rearview mirror. Am I right, Rosie? Her name is Rosalind Jasmine Sapphire, not Rosie, Arnie said. Spike rolled his eyes.
I looked at Arnie and mouthed a silent thank you. He smiled at me. When we got to the other side of campus, Spike parked his car and we all walked to the house. Spike was using his phone to text someone.
Ace should be getting here soon, he said.
What? I yelled. Ace is coming! I don't want to see him!
Spike laughed. Yep, maybe he'll make good on that card trick he did with you at the last party. He laughed again, and I felt myself blushing. What card trick? Arnie asked, a look of confusion on his face.
Nothing, forget about it, I said quickly. We all walked into the house. It was a lot nicer than the house at the last party, and the people seemed to be more pleasant and respectful. One of the people in the fraternity came up to us.
Hey, welcome to our party, he said with excitement. A bunch of us are playing Twister in the other room if you want to get in on it. God, this is so lame, Spike said. What are you going to do after that? Play Spin the Bottle? The guy's face fell.
Well, I would love to play Twister, I said, shooting Spike a disapproving look. The guy's face brightened again.
I'll play. That sounds fun, Arnie said. Why not? Raven said with a shrug. Spike shook his head. Enjoy yourselves, nerds, he sneered. I'm going to see if there's anyone around who isn't a complete loser. Spike walked away.
Don't mind him, I said, reassuring the fraternity guy. Thanks for inviting us to play. We went into the next room and played a few rounds of Twister. It was a lot of fun. At one point, Arnie lost his balance and fell over on top of me. We laughed a bit, but then he got quiet and stared at me. Arnie? I asked. I can't get up again if you don't get off me, you big goof.
Oh, right, he said. He got up. He had the same hurt look on his face as he had when he found out Spike and Raven were coming to the party with us, so I think he must have hurt himself when he fell or something. Rosalind Jasmine Sapphire?
Hey, I said, noticing a table on the side of the room with snacks on it. Are those chips? I jumped up to my feet and ran over, but my heart sank when I looked at the chips. None of these are plain, I said really sadly.
If you want, I could try to find you some, Arnie offered.
Aw, Arnie, I said, you're such a nice guy. But before anything else could happen, suddenly there was a lot of noise coming from the other room. We all went to see what it was. Two guys are fighting. My eyes got really wide when I realized that one of them was Ace. Ace threw a punch that hit the other guy square in the jaw, knocking him down. That pretty much ended the fight. When he got up, the other guy left. Ace went over to the table that had some snacks on it, picked up some ice from an ice bowl, and started using it to cool his hands off. He looked like he was still really angry, even though he had won the fight. I didn't know why, but I found myself walking over to him, all of a sudden concerned, even though I didn't like him at all. What was that all about? I asked.
He looked at
me.
me. Don't worry about it. He had it coming.
Hey, I'm just trying to be nice, I said, really annoyed.
He turned to face me. Yeah, well, the ice slipped through his fingers and fell on the floor. I flung my hands up in frustration.
Oh, just let me do it, I exclaimed. I took his hand and put it in the ice bowl.
Author's note. This ice bowl is going to become really important in the 7th book, so don't forget about it.
Why do you get in so many fights anyways? I started asking, but stopped when I looked up from the ice bowl. Ace had his eyes on my hand, holding his in the ice bowl, like he couldn't believe I was helping him. Then he looked up and all of a sudden was staring right into my eyes. There was something in them I had never seen before. Tenderness. It was like a moment out of time, both of us trapped in it, unable to look away from each other. Some people say that the eyes are the window into the soul, and that's exactly what was going on here. I felt like I could see into him. And what I saw was that there was more to him than just a rude, thoughtless person. He had more depths than I had given him credit for. It literally took my breath away.
Is everything okay? I heard Arnie ask suddenly behind me.
Yeah, fine, I said, still not able to take my eyes off Ace's.
Are you sure?
Yes. Arnie, would you please go get some drinks for us? I asked.
Well, okay, he said. His voice sounded disappointed. I heard him walk away. The moment out of time was over. Ace was the first person to break eye contact. He looked a little bashful. Thanks, he said, nodding to his hand that I was still holding in the ice bowl.
You're welcome, I said, finally taking my hand back. There was a really awkward silence between us for about a minute, or maybe two. Does your hand feel better? I asked.
It will be fine. I've been in enough fights to know.
I looked concerned. That doesn't sound good, I said.
He looked away. Life isn't always good, he said.
But it doesn't have to always be bad, I pointed out.
He looked back at me. We don't always get to pick and choose between the good and bad moments, he said.
Whoa, I thought. He's a really deep person. Arnie came back with 3 bottles of water and gave one to me, gave one to Ace, and kept one for himself. Ace gave him a condescending look.
Water? He asked. At a college party? How big of a dweeb are you? Arnie's face got really red. I'm not a dweeb, he said. I say that you are a dweeb, Ace said, taking a step closer to Arnie. You gonna do something about it? Arnie's face got even redder. Keep making fun of me, and maybe I will, he said. I quickly stepped in between them.
Arnie, would you please go get my coat from the car? I'm a little bit cold, I said, desperate to keep them from fighting. Arnie and Ace kept staring at each other, but after a moment, Arnie's shoulder slumped and he looked away.
All right, he said. I'll go find Spike. He has the keys. Arnie walked away.
I looked back at Ace. That wasn't very nice of you, I said.
He shrugged. Maybe I'm just not a very nice person, he said.
You could be if you wanted to be, I said. You don't have to be mean all the time.
Look, I appreciate you helping me with my hand, but I don't need you to analyze me, he said. Trust me, this is one head you don't want to get inside.
Why not? I asked.
He looked directly at me. You wouldn't like what you find, he said in a really serious tone of voice.
Deep and mysterious, I thought. Suddenly, the fraternity guy who had greeted us when we got to the party came into the room.
Hey, Rosalind Jasmine Sapphire, right? He asked. I nodded. We're setting up a game of Clue in the next room. Do you want to play?
I don't know, I said. I've never played before.
You can pick it up as you go. Just from getting to know you a little bit so far tonight, you're definitely smart enough. You've got brains and beauty.
I smiled and felt myself blushing, instinctively covering my green eye with my hand. And then, beside me, I heard Ace snickering. I whirled on him. And just what exactly is so funny about that? I demanded. He just smirked back at me. I put my hands on my hips. Maybe you're right, Ace Pike, I said. I probably wouldn't like what I find if I got inside your head. Then I left the room with the fraternity guy, proud of myself for having gotten the last word. I was still really angry, but when we left the room, it all kind of faded away. I just felt tired. College parties didn't seem to work out for me, so I decided I wanted to go home and excuse myself from the game. Just then, I spotted Arnie. He had a really worried look on his face. Arnie, what's wrong? I asked, touching his shoulder in concern. Did you find Spike?
Yeah, I did, he said. But I couldn't get the car keys from him.
Why not? I asked, not understanding.
Well, he's upstairs. He's banging some chick who is not Raven.
What? I gasped. But Raven is his girlfriend. You mean he's cheating on her? Arnie looked down. I shook my head in disgust. I've had enough of this party, I said. I want to go home. I'll get my coat back later. I'm going to walk back to my room.
I'll walk with you, Arnie said.
Thanks, Arnie. You're a really good friend. He smiled, which made me smile. We left the house and had a good conversation on our way back to the dorms.
Author's note. Plot twist. I really hate Spike for cheating on Raven like that. Why do guys have to be like that sometimes? Anyway, thanks to all of you for continuing to read. I'll try to get the next chapters up soon, but it may be hard because I have a lot of homework to do, lol. But don't worry, I will definitely keep writing. Heart, heart, heart.
Okay.
All right, I guess that wraps it up for today then.
Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed those chapters. We now know about the sandwich.
We do. And we'll be back next time with chapters 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Yeah. And also, since this is now the third video we put out, in the description, I have like a playlist of the other, I meant to say this at the beginning, but I have a playlist where I'm going to add all of the videos so you can watch them in order in case you missed something or have watched this whole video and don't know what's going on. I am explaining it now, but yeah.
All right, until next time.